Brooklyn, New York, is a borough teeming with life, characterized by its diverse neighborhoods, bustling streets, and the ever-present rhythm of urban existence. Within this dynamic setting lies James Madison High School, a well-regarded institution at the community's core. It is here that LaToya Harris, a 34-year-old English teacher, dedicated her days. Known for her tough yet fair approach, she garnered a reputation among her students, who often expressed a blend of admiration and trepidation towards her. LaToya possessed a sharp wit and a keen intellect, making her a formidable presence in the classroom. In contrast, her home life was markedly different. LaToya resided in a modest brownstone on a tranquil street, a stark departure from the city's vibrancy. Her husband, Marcus, worked as a long-haul truck driver, frequently away for days or even weeks. Initially, their marriage was filled with passion and affection, but over time, it had grown distant. The prolonged absences, forgotten anniversaries, and the monotony of daily life had taken a toll on their relationship. LaToya increasingly felt isolated and unfulfilled, trapped in a life that had lost its vitality. It was during one of Marcus's lengthy trips that LaToya first became aware of Jamal Thompson. Jamal, a 17-year-old senior, possessed a natural charisma that endeared him to his classmates. A standout on the basketball team, he was tall and athletic, with a smile that could brighten any room. However, beneath his confident facade, Jamal faced challenges. His academic performance was declining, putting his graduation at risk. Recognizing a student in need, LaToya offered to tutor him after school. Their initial sessions were innocent, centered on academic support. LaToya was focused on catching up with her schoolwork and preparing for her exams. However, as she spent more time with Jamal, she began to observe aspects of him that had previously gone unnoticed. She became aware of the way his gaze lingered on her a moment too long, the casual touches that sent a shiver down her spine, and how he seemed to hang on her every word. An undeniable chemistry existed between them, an unspoken attraction that neither could dismiss. One evening, following an especially intense study session, Jamal leaned in closer than usual. His warm breath against her skin accompanied a whisper that elicited a deep, genuine laugh from LaToya, one she had not experienced in quite some time. Without a second thought, she reached out to touch his arm, and in that instant, a shift occurred. Jamal turned to her, his eyes filled with desire, and before she could reconsider, their lips met in a kiss that was both passionate and forbidden. This kiss marked the beginning of an affair that would engulf them both. LaToya was acutely aware of the wrongness of the situation, recognizing that she was crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Yet, the thrill of it all was too intoxicating to resist. Jamal reignited a sense of aliveness within her, making her feel desired in a manner that Marcus had not in years. They began to meet in secret, stealing moments in vacant classrooms, in LaToya's car, and in the shadowy corners of the school where no one would think to look. However, Jamal was not the only one who noticed the transformation in LaToya. Rashad Williams, a 16-year-old junior and star football player, had always harbored feelings for his English teacher. His cocky confidence and swagger made him irresistibly appealing to many. LaToya was not like most girls her age, she was older and more sophisticated. Rashad, determined to capture her attention, began lingering after class under the pretense of needing assistance with assignments he could manage on his own. He sought opportunities to be near her. Initially, LaToya dismissed Rashad's advances, as she was already involved with Jamal and did not wish to complicate her life further. However, Rashad's persistence eventually drew her in unexpectedly. He was unlike Jamal, bolder, more assertive, and exuding a confidence that was hard to resist. One day, following a particularly intense argument with Jamal, LaToya found herself alone with Rashad in her classroom. The tension was palpable, and when Rashad leaned in to kiss her, she did not pull away. Their affair was distinct from her relationship with Jamal. With Rashad, it was purely physical, fulfilling a long-suppressed need within her. They engaged in reckless encounters in risky locations, testing the limits of safety. LaToya was aware that she was playing with fire, yet the thrill was intoxicating. Rashad empowered her, making her feel in control for the first time in years. However, LaToya soon found herself attracted to another student, Andre Mitchell. At 18, Andre was a senior like Jamal, yet he was entirely different: quiet, studious, and contemplative. He was the kind of student who stayed after class to engage in discussions about literature and philosophy, rather than to flirt with his teacher. His depth was striking. LaToya was captivated by a sensitivity that evoked memories of the dreams and aspirations she had once cherished before life had taken its toll on her. Andre had long admired LaToya from afar. She embodied everything he aspired to be: intelligent, cultured, and resolute. As he began to spend time with her after school, engaging in discussions about literature and ideas, he felt a connection that surpassed any he had experienced with his peers. LaToya, in turn, found herself revealing her thoughts and feelings to Andre in ways she had never done with Jamal or Rashad. Their dialogues were profound, filled with mutual insights and personal revelations, and it was not long before their relationship evolved from intellectual companionship to something more intimate. Their initial kiss was gentle and somewhat tentative, a stark contrast to the passionate encounters she had shared with Jamal and Rashad. With Andre, the relationship transcended mere physical attraction; it was rooted in an emotional bond and a profound sense of understanding. LaToya recognized that she was becoming increasingly entangled in this relationship, yet she found it difficult to withdraw. She yearned for the attention, the thrill, and the feeling of being desired by these young men. However, as the weeks progressed, the burden of maintaining 3 clandestine relationships began to take its toll on her. She lived in a constant state of anxiety, fearful that her secrets would be uncovered, jeopardizing her career, marriage, and overall life. The excitement of the affairs was gradually being overshadowed by a mounting sense of apprehension. The boys, too, were becoming more demanding and possessive, each seeking more of her time and focus. The tension reached a critical juncture when Jamal, Rashad, and Andre confronted her. LaToya began to sense that she was not the sole focus in her own life, as each individual around her started to pick up on the subtle indicators of her divided attention. The way she appeared preoccupied during their interactions, the enigmatic text messages she received, and the occasional inadvertent revelations all contributed to a growing atmosphere of jealousy. This burgeoning envy gave rise to anger, resentment, and an urgent need to uncover the truth. Brooklyn, with its bustling streets and observant residents, was on the verge of becoming the focal point of a scandal that would disrupt lives. LaToya had believed she could manage the situation and keep her secrets concealed, but she was about to discover that the intricate web she had created was far more complicated than she had ever anticipated. The repercussions of her choices were closing in on her, and the cost of her illicit escapades would be far steeper than she had imagined. As autumn descended upon Brooklyn, bringing a chill to the air, the atmosphere within the halls of James Madison High School grew increasingly charged. LaToya Harris found herself deeper in the entanglement of her own making, as her relationships with Jamal, Rashad, and Andre intensified and became more perilous. What had initially been an exhilarating diversion from her ordinary existence was now spiraling out of control, and LaToya felt the mounting pressure. Jamal was the first to sense that something was amiss. What had once been a passionate and thrilling affair was beginning to feel altered. LaToya appeared distracted and distant, and their stolen moments together were becoming increasingly rare. Jamal, not one to be easily deceived, recognized that something or someone else was claiming her attention, and his suspicions deepened, accompanied by a growing sense of unease. Rashad's inability to shake off his jealousy was becoming increasingly evident. He thrived on attention and was unaccustomed to being overlooked. When LaToya began to cancel their meetings, offering excuses that lacked credibility, Rashad's previously easygoing nature soured. He started to assert himself more forcefully, showing up unexpectedly and demanding her time and affection. The thought of LaToya possibly seeing someone else ignited a fierce anger within him. In contrast, Andre exhibited a more subtle form of unease. He observed the changes in LaToya, her preoccupation even in their private moments, and her distracted demeanor during conversations. Andre, being sensitive, thoughtful, and deeply in love with Latoya in a manner that set him apart from the others, sensed that something was amiss. He was acutely aware that the woman he cherished was drifting away, and the prospect of losing her filled him with dread. As days turned into weeks, the tension among the boys became unbearable, resembling predators circling the same prey, each vying for Latoya's attention and determined to be her choice. Jamal, driven by jealousy, began to monitor Latoya more closely. He followed her after school, noting how she lingered in the halls and appeared to have clandestine meetings behind closed doors. It soon became clear to him that he was not the only one interested in her. One evening, after a particularly tense day, Jamal resolved to confront Latoya. He waited for her in the parking lot after school, his heart racing and his mind in turmoil. As Latoya finally emerged, thoughts of betrayal clouded her mind. He stepped out from the shadows, his expression a mask of restrained fury. "Who is it?" he demanded, his voice low yet charged with intensity. "Who else are you seeing?" Latoya froze, her heart momentarily halting as she recognized that the carefully crafted facade she had maintained was beginning to disintegrate. She attempted to dismiss the situation with laughter, but Jamal was not swayed. He advanced closer, his body taut, his eyes ablaze with a jealousy Latoya had never witnessed before. "Do not lie to me, Latoya," he warned, his voice trembling with emotion. "I know you are involved with someone else. I need to know who." Caught between the truth and the fabrications she had spun for months, Latoya hesitated. Before she could reply, Rashad appeared, his usual swagger replaced by a simmering rage. He had observed their interactions and recognized the special connection Jamal seemed to have with Latoya, and he was not willing to overlook it. "What is happening here?" Rashad inquired, his tone accusatory as he approached the pair. He shifted his gaze from Jamal to Latoya, his expression darkening as the pieces of the puzzle began to align. Jamal turned to confront Rashad, his fists clenched at his sides. "You tell me," he retorted. "What the hell are you doing here?" Before Rashad could respond, Andre appeared at the edge of the parking lot, having spotted the two boys from a distance. Unlike Jamal and Rashad, Andre had never been one to seek confrontation, but the sight of them with Latoya and the realization that his worst fears were materializing compelled him to act in a manner he had never done before. "What are you doing?" Andre's voice was soft, yet it carried an unmistakable edge. The situation spiraled beyond her control, as Andre, desperate to shield Latoya, attempted to pull Rashad away. However, in the ensuing chaos, he was drawn into the conflict. The three young men, once friends or at least acquaintances, had transformed into adversaries, their rivalry fueled by their affection for the same woman. Latoya's efforts to mediate proved futile, the boys were too far gone, consumed by their anger and jealousy to heed any rational appeal. As the altercation intensified, the atmosphere became increasingly perilous. In a moment of heated impulse, Rashad seized a loose metal pipe from the ground, swinging it recklessly at Jamal. The impact resonated with a sickening crack, sending Jamal crashing to the ground, blood streaming from a wound on his head. Latoya cried out, rushing to Jamal's side, but it was too late, the harm had already been inflicted. Witnessing Jamal's lifeless form, Andre lost all restraint, lunging at Rashad and tackling him to the ground, his fists raining down on Rashad's face with an intensity that astonished even him. Rashad, dazed, struggled to retaliate, but the fight quickly slipped from his grasp. Amidst the turmoil, Latoya regained her footing, her mind racing with urgency. She knew she had to intervene, to halt the escalating violence before it escalated further. Yet, as she surveyed the scene, a wave of dread washed over her, there was no stopping the chaos. The boys were beyond control, and she felt utterly powerless to reverse the violence she had inadvertently instigated. In a fit of blind rage, Andre reached for the metal pipe that Rashad had wielded against Jamal, delivering a blow that rendered Rashad unconscious. The fight had concluded, but the consequences were irrevocable, with Rashad lying on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. Jamal stood still, his breathing shallow and labored. LaToya was paralyzed, her mind struggling to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. The boys she had cared for, whom she had loved in her own way, now lay broken and bloodied at her feet. The reality of the situation began to dawn on her, the weight of her actions pressing down heavily. The affair, the secrets, the lies all had culminated in this moment, a moment that would irrevocably alter their lives. The distant sound of sirens jolted LaToya back to the present. Someone had alerted the authorities, and they were en route. Panic surged within her as she grasped the magnitude of what had transpired. There was no possibility of concealment, no way to rectify the situation. The truth was exposed, and consequences loomed, consequences she had never envisioned when she first crossed that line with Jamal. When the police arrived, chaos reigned. Rashad was taken away in an ambulance, still unconscious, while Jamal was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Andre, dazed and bloodied, was handcuffed and placed in the back of a police vehicle. LaToya found herself being questioned immediately, her mind numb as she attempted to articulate the unexplainable. The media quickly descended upon the school, transforming the incident into a national spectacle. The scandal sent shockwaves through the Brooklyn community, and LaToya's life unraveled before her eyes. Her marriage, career, and reputation were all obliterated in an instant. She was suspended from her job pending an investigation, and soon the full extent of her relationships with Jamal, Rashad, and Andre was revealed as the story gained traction, turning Brooklyn into a focal point of controversy. Local news channels, drawn by the allure of gossip and speculation, established a presence outside LaToya's once peaceful brownstone, documenting her fall from a respected educator to a figure of public disgrace. Neighbors who had previously admired her commitment to her students now exchanged whispers about her scandalous behavior. LaToya found herself increasingly isolated, not only from her community but also from her own family. Her husband, Marcus, returned to discover their life in shambles. The betrayal struck him deeply, and despite his initial shock, he could not find it in himself to forgive her. He filed for divorce, seeking to extricate himself from the turmoil that had overtaken their lives. Marcus relocated from Brooklyn, leaving LaToya in a place that had transformed into a prison. Without her marriage and career, she was left to confront the repercussions of her actions in solitude. The burden of her choices began to weigh heavily upon her. Once a proud and confident woman, she now grappled with profound feelings of guilt and shame. Facing her reflection became a challenge, as did confronting the outside world. The emotional impact of the scandal plunged her into a deep depression, prompting her to reevaluate every decision she had made and the life she had squandered. The boys involved in the scandal each coped with their trauma in distinct ways. Jamal, severely injured from the altercation, faced a long and arduous recovery. The once promising athlete was now burdened with both physical scars and emotional scars that haunted him daily. His aspirations for a sports career were shattered, leaving him to navigate a new path in life while wrestling with feelings of betrayal and the violence he had experienced. Rashad, despite being a central figure in the altercation, faced his own set of difficulties. His injuries were significant, and the incident left a profound impact on his mental well-being. This experience rendered him withdrawn and resentful, as he contended with public scrutiny and the legal ramifications of his actions, all while grappling with the trauma of the event. Rashad's self-esteem was severely undermined, and he found it challenging to reconstruct his identity amid the turmoil. Similarly, Andre was profoundly affected. He was placed in juvenile detention due to his involvement in the incident. The experience was harsh, compelling him to confront the seriousness of his actions. Although he believed he was acting in self-defense, the reality of the violence he engaged in weighed heavily on his conscience. Andre sought to utilize his time in detention for reflection and personal development, yet the journey toward redemption remained long and fraught with uncertainty. The aftermath of the scandal left a significant mark on the Brooklyn community. James Madison High School, once a beacon of education and growth, became a symbol of betrayal and failure. The school administration faced severe criticism for their negligence and the absence of preventive measures. Efforts were initiated to restore trust within the community, but the damage had already been inflicted. Attention shifted toward ensuring the safety and well-being of students and addressing the systemic issues that had permitted the situation to arise. LaToya's tragic story evolved into a cautionary tale, highlighting the repercussions of power abuse and underscoring the necessity of vigilance. The community demonstrated vigilance in safeguarding its most vulnerable members, while the scars of past events began to heal through the establishment of support systems aimed at addressing the emotional and psychological repercussions for all involved. Ultimately, LaToya's downfall represented a complex and multifaceted tragedy, characterized by betrayal, heartbreak, and the dire consequences of choices fueled by desire and desperation. The reverberations of that fateful night persisted long after the media coverage subsided, serving as a poignant reminder of the fragility of trust and the lasting effects of one's actions on the lives of others. LaToya Harris's life was irrevocably altered as she confronted the harsh reality of her circumstances. With the trial concluded and the media frenzy slowly diminishing, she was left to contend with the ramifications of her decisions. Her marriage had ended, her career lay in ruins, and her reputation was irreparably damaged. She received a sentence of 25 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years, a severe yet unavoidable consequence given the seriousness of her offenses.